On that note, you can take it away.
Thank you very much, sir. Well, good afternoon, and just really, Councilman, goodness gracious, Chairman Jones and members of the council, just really wanted to take a minute first. When the Smart Policing Act was enacted, part of the legislation required the police department to submit an annual report that covers crime trends that are experienced within the county, use of force by our Baltimore County police officers, and any other crime or policing related information that the police department deemed appropriate. In just a few moments, I'm going to turn it over to various members of our leadership team to present the requisite information and to highlight our progress during the year 2020. Before I turn it over to them, first, I'd like to say that I'm very honored to be here today, virtually at that, but representing your Baltimore County police officers and professional staff. These dedicated employees are serving the residents, businesses, and visitors of Baltimore County 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and they serve with integrity, impartiality, and professionalism. I am incredibly proud of the work that the members of our police department do. They're deeply committed in the communities they serve. And in fact, just this past weekend, I participated in a neighborhood walk with community members and police officers from our Woodlawn precinct. And during that period of time together, I was truly reminded on multiple occasions of just how much our officers take their responsibility seriously and how dedicated they are to the work that they do. As you know, our officers are working in a constantly changing and demanding environment. Their chosen profession is a challenging one, but they arrive to work each day and they're prepared to place their lives on the line in order to protect our communities. I'd like to also take a moment to thank the county executive, thank Chairman Jones, thank each member of the county council, as well as the entire administration for your continued support of the work that we do to keep Baltimore County safe. And for members of the community that might be joining us today virtually, thank you to them for their cooperation and partnership. Our achievements in public safety are absolutely the result of joint efforts. They're relationships between law enforcement, community members, and other stakeholders. In neighborhoods throughout Baltimore County, we do not do this work alone. And our work in 2020 was meaningful and it was impactful, and that's as a result of those combined endeavors. During our presentation this afternoon, first Colonel Andre Davis will review several crime trends that were significant last year, along with information on our clearance rates and crime statistics. Colonel Davis is the Bureau Chief of our Criminal Investigations Bureau. Followed by Colonel Davis, Colonel Stephen Layback will then discuss use of force numbers for 2020, along with some information about some new nationally recognized training that we've introduced. He will also be highlighting some of our policy revisions from last year. Colonel Layback is the Bureau Chief of our Professional Standards Bureau that was created in 2020 to strengthen oversight of discipline and training across the agency. In addition to the Professional Standards Bureau, as you know, we also created the Office of Accountability and Compliance to serve as yet another mechanism for increasing oversight within our organization. Director David Anderson is tasked with proactively assessing significant aspects of our work and benchmarking off of national best practices. He is working to lead our efforts to make adjustments and enhances as needed. Director Anderson's office helps to bridge the gap between traditional methods of inspection and what we refer to as the ever-evolving landscape of 21st century policing. This work has led to the development of new ideas, procedures, updated policies, and other ventures. Some of his areas of focus have been on our internal affairs section and the development of new search warrant protocols. The list for ongoing projects in that office is growing, and I look forward to implementing more of these new initiatives that are born from that work. They're continuing to drive progress across our organization. We also strive to build trust and increase transparency through participating in initiatives such as the implementation of the data dashboards. We partnered closely with the administration to release several public-facing dashboards, which include information that's of interest to the public, things like crime statistics and use of force data. Additionally, we are actively engaged in the County Executive's Equitable Policing Work Group, with multiple members of our organization attending meetings and contributing to those efforts. I serve as an ex officio member for that work group. After Colonel Layback speaks, then Colonel Dennis Delp will then discuss our recruitment efforts. He'll also speak about mobile crisis and wellness. Colonel Delp is the Bureau Chief for our Administrative Support Bureau. and he shares my vision of building a top-down culture in our organization that focuses on employee health and wellness. We are committed to expanding these services for our valuable employees. As you know, police officers are repeatedly the first on scene to unimaginable situations that thankfully most people never experience even once in a lifetime. While their role is a crucial one, their continued exposure to trauma can impact their health. Police officers are highly susceptible to increased health issues, rates of divorce, substance abuse, and depression. As the national rate of police officer suicide continues to rise, we are acutely aware of the importance of providing support and services to our members. Following Colonel Delp, our Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Director Kelly Fenner, will discuss some of the initiatives that her office was involved with last year. Director Fenner's role is a critical one in the police department. Both her internal and external concentration on DEI are essential as we continue to prioritize building strategies on recruiting and retaining a diverse workforce. As we move through 2021 and look towards the future of our agency, we continue to explore new innovative and targeted recruitment campaigns and strategies to ensure that we continue to attract a pool of qualified candidates to our police department. In fact, just last month, I signed the 30 by 30 pledge for our agency. This is a national campaign and a commitment to increase the number of women in our police department. That initiative falls perfectly in line with my overall push, which I know matches that of the administration and that of the council for a more diverse organization, both in our entry-level training classes and across the ranks. It is my goal to ensure that our police department reflects the populations we serve. Some of the focuses on DEI are on relationship building within the community, educating our employees on the many neighborhoods and cultures across Baltimore County, and making sure that all of our employees recognize their value and have suitable access to resources for growth and professional development. Finally, Colonel Jay Landsman will be our last presenter, and he will discuss our body-worn camera program and the impact of the pandemic on our agency. Colonel Landsman, who is the Bureau Chief of the Operations Bureau, will describe some of the significant operational changes we have made over the last year in order to accomplish our evolving law enforcement mission while continuing to support our communities. Calendar year 2020 was an unprecedented year for all of us. In addition to the pandemic, we had a challenging presidential election and saw areas throughout the country experiencing civil unrest. Our routine law enforcement duties expanded to include other responsibilities such as providing security and support for multiple COVID-19 testing centers, food distribution sites, polling places, and vaccination clinics. We also supported numerous peaceful demonstrations across Baltimore County. Despite the difficult circumstances, our police officers were committed to their roles and continued to show up for work each and every day, while balancing the same uncertainty that all of us and our families faced on a daily basis during this pandemic. For their perseverance and dedication, and for many other things, I am incredibly proud of them. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Colonel Andre Davis for the next portion of the presentation.
Well, thank you, Chief, and good afternoon to Mr. Chairman and members of the council. As the Chief said, my name is Colonel Andre Davis. I'm the Bureau Chief of Criminal Investigations. During my portion of this presentation, I will give you an overview into some of our department's performance statistics concerning crime. As you can see on the screen, our violent crimes consist of homicides, rapes, robberies, and aggravated assaults. What you are looking at is the raw data for the year 2020. And as you are digesting this information, I will simply go over the clearance rates in each of the categories for the year 2020. The homicide clearance rate was 73%. Rape cases, we cleared 63%. Robberies, 55%. And aggravated assaults, 73%. The national clearance rates produced by the FBI are not out for 2020, but I will give you an idea of historically how well our county does in solving crimes using 2019 as an example. According to FBI data, the national clearance rates for violence crimes are, for homicides, 61.4%, rapes, 32%, 30.9%, robberies 30.5%, and aggravated assaults 52.3%. Overall, national 2019 violent crime clearance rates were 45.5%. In Baltimore County, our overall clearance rate was 73.6%. Baltimore County Police did significantly better than the national average in every violent crime category. These great clearance rates are not by accident. These crimes were solved due to robust business and community relationships and exceptional police work. Now on the screen, you will see the raw data for our Part 1 property crimes in Baltimore County. Our clearance rates for these categories are as follows. In burglaries, we cleared 37%, theft 24%, motor vehicle thefts 21%, and arson 29%. Overall, 2019 Part 1 property crime clearance rates was 17.2%. In Baltimore County, our overall Part 1 clearance rate was 31.3%. Again, Baltimore County Police did better than the national average in every property crimes category. In addition to the community relationships that I mentioned earlier, improved technology and strong training helps our agency remain amongst one of the leaders in the nation as it pertains to solving crimes. Next on the screen, you will see Baltimore County's calls for service, ranging from 2018 to 2020. Calls for service in Baltimore County tend to increase every year for various reasons, but the most obvious reason is population growth. Our agency continues to meet the growing demands from our communities in a very, very positive way. I will now discuss some identified trends that Baltimore County experienced in 2020, starting with carjackings. In 2020, Baltimore County had 82 carjacking incidents reported. 63 of these cases were cleared, which gives us a clearance rate of 77%. The first trend that occurred between December 21st, 2019 and ran through January 13th of 2020. We noticed a pattern along the York Road corridor in Cockeysville precinct where 3 carjackings occurred. This trend involved younger male suspects who traveled the area via light rail, and they preyed on women entering their vehicles alone. During one incident, a female was brutally assaulted during a carjacking. This victim sustained injuries that required hospitalization, but nothing life-threatening. She was treated and released from the hospital. This trend immediately drew community and media attention. Our carjacking team worked extensive hours investigating this trend, which included many hours of proactive surveillance in the affected areas. The carjacking team completed search warrant applications to bring this case to a close. The carjacking team arrested and charged 5 youth in these cases, and the average age of these youth was 14. All of the juveniles were detained by the Department of Juvenile Services based on these charges. The second trend pattern that was detected was in mid-September and until late October of 2020. The suspects involved in these carjacking incidents were younger males who operated in the Northwest and Western districts of Baltimore City and in our Woodlawn, Franklin, and Pikesville precincts. The suspects, there were upwards to 40 suspects identified by Baltimore City in this trend. The suspects involved in this trend used long guns to commit these crimes and would often approach the victims as they arrived home. The suspects would also steal the victim's phone, their cell phone, to access any cash apps stored on their device. We can attribute 5 cases to this pattern that occurred in Baltimore City and spilled over into Baltimore County, and they were cleared by making 6 arrests. Thanks to the great collaboration between the Baltimore City Police Department and our agency, this case was brought to a successful conclusion. And again, the average age of the arrestee was 15. All of the juveniles were detained by the Department of Juvenile Services based on these charges. The final carjacking trend occurred in a span of 2 days, November 24th and 25th of 2020. In these 2 cases, the suspects targeted food delivery drivers. In both cases, the suspects arrived in vehicles previously taken in a carjacking. This is considered a trend because multiple cases occurred in Baltimore City, and only 2 cases spilled over into Baltimore County. 1 case occurred in Cockeysville Precinct and the other in our Parkville Precinct. Currently, no one has been charged in these cases because the investigation is still active. I want to switch the attention to ATM burglary trends. Throughout 2020, Baltimore County experienced a trend of commercial burglaries where suspects targeted standalone ATM machines. These burglaries occurred inside small businesses throughout the county. This was a trend that impacted jurisdictions across the United States. In many cases, the suspects removed the ATM machines from the location and were able to access money from inside. The Baltimore County Police Burglary Unit, in collaboration with personnel from our police precincts, coordinated with our law enforcement partners in the region to investigate this trend. As a result of this collaboration, several arrests were made. Our agency continues to work with the business community to prevent additional burglaries from occurring. Each precinct was tasked with identifying every location in their command that had standalone ATM machines and provide prevention tools to local businesses. The precinct commanders were advised to utilize the problem-oriented policing guides to distribute to the businesses. Community outreach teams offered, and in some cases, completed security surveys, and also handed out pamphlets that you see on the screen. These types of cases are not unique to Baltimore County. This is where communication with our law enforcement partners, great technology, and collaboration with our fusion centers greatly increased the quality of our investigations. The last trend that I'll discuss is a county-wide auto theft trend. Our department faced a variety of new challenges in 2020, but one consistent issue in our crime fighting effort was that many vehicles were stolen from communities around Baltimore County with the use of a key. In many incidents, a vehicle was left running while unattended outside of a home or business. In many other incidents, vehicles were parked and the keys were left inside of the vehicle. This trend continues to be a challenge for law enforcement around the region. Through public outreach and frequent public service announcements, we are able to communicate important prevention messages to communities throughout Baltimore County. In sum, I can say that most of our grand theft autos in the region require the use of keys. And that is consistent with nationwide trends, primarily because of improved technology, such as key fobs. The Baltimore County Police Department's messaging continues to focus on grand theft auto awareness and prevention. So thank you for the opportunity to speak about statistics and crime trends in Baltimore County. I feel very confident in saying that Baltimore County continues to be a safe place to live, work, and visit. And I will now turn the presentation over to Colonel Stephen Lavack. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the County Council. My name is Colonel Stephen Lavack, and I am the Chief of the Professional Standards Bureau. Thank you for providing me with the opportunity to be here today. Everyone at this point should have a copy of the report submitted by the agency in compliance with the SMART Act, outlining the accomplishments of the agency for the year 2020. Many of the points I'm going to discuss today can be found from within that document. As the Chief previously stated, in July of 2020, the Professional Standards Bureau was created to create an additional layer of oversight over several areas of the agency, to include internal affairs, training, forensics, and our strategic planning section. Transitioning over to use of force. In 2020, the department responded to 768,717 calls for service and recorded 187 instances of use of force, which indicates force was only used 0.024% of the time. Putting this into further perspective, 99.976% of the time, our officers did not use force and were able to bring incidents to a successful conclusion safely. In 62.5% of cases, the force option utilized by our officers was the officer's hands. The next highest categories of force option used was the taser and OC spray, with each being deployed 19% of the time. All use of force cases are complex in nature. All complaints, either generated from the public or internally, are investigated by our internal affairs section. All use of force incidents follow a stringent review process in a successive supervisory pattern. Once the incident is approved at the division level, it is forwarded to the section commander of the internal affairs section for policy compliance before ultimately being reviewed by the training division commander for training compliance in the area of de-escalation techniques and to ensure no trends are developing which would require additional training. For example, a de-escalation technique such as ICAT, which stands for Integrated Communications, Assessment, and Tactics techniques, we teach to all members and involves 6 different specific training modules. Of those 6, the critical decision-making model and the operational safety tactics are 2 of the more important areas which are reviewed during a use of force investigation to ensure compliance. As an agency, we constantly are reviewing practices to ensure fair and equitable procedures are being adhered to. Transitioning over to several advancements in our training curriculum, ICAT, as I previously explained, was developed by the Police Executive Research Forum, otherwise known as PERF, and has several different learning modules. ICAT is a training program that provides first responding police officers with the tools, skills, and options they need to successfully and safely diffuse a range of critical incidents. Developed by PERF with input from hundreds of police professionals from across the United States, ICAT is designed especially for situations involving persons who are unarmed or are armed with a weapon other than a firearm, and who may be experiencing a mental health or other crisis. The training program is anchored by the critical decision-making model that helps officers assess situations, make safe and effective decisions, and document and learn from their actions. This is a cornerstone of all our scenario-based training modules. The second advancement for the calendar year of 2020 involves understanding how subconscious bias affects how we police. In early January 2020, Fair and Impartial Policing training developed by Fair and Impartial Policing LLC began. Recognized as the #1 provider of implicit bias awareness training for law enforcement in North America, several major city agencies have obtained this training, such as Boston, Dallas, Los Angeles, Miami-Dade, Minneapolis, New York, Philadelphia, and Seattle, just to name a few. Training programs have been implemented also within state police organizations as well. In Baltimore County, a 1.5-day session for command level personnel, which here in Baltimore County included a command community version that involves command personnel and community stakeholders working together, was also done. All sworn members of the agency are required to attend this training. Lastly, the agency recently was accepted to obtain ABLE training. Active Bystandership for Law Enforcement is what ABLE stands for. It was developed by the Georgetown Innovative Policing Program, partnering with global law firm Sheppard Mullin. ABLE establishes standards and benchmarks for an effective active bystandership program. The ABLE project is a national hub for training, technical assistance, and research, all with the aim of creating a police culture in which officers intervene as necessary to 1, prevent misconduct, 2, avoid police mistakes, and finally 3, promote officer health and wellness. As an agency, we are proud of being accepted into ABLE, as the process to apply and be accepted required an endorsement from 2 community groups. The department was honored to receive endorsements from the Baltimore County branch of the NAACP and the Amigos of Baltimore County. Training is scheduled to begin this month and proceed through the calendar year. Transitioning into our internal affairs section, the Professional Standards Bureau remains steadfast in a commitment to the community to provide a transparent internal affairs process. Policies and procedures are evaluated on a regular basis for compliance. The ultimate goal of the internal affairs section is to ensure that all members follow departmental policies, follow their training, and demonstrate the professionalism that is deserved by everyone in the communities that we serve. We do this by ensuring that all investigations are thorough, complete, timely, and objective. Objectiveness is essential to installing legitimacy and confidence in the communities we serve, in addition to our own workforce. During 2020, the leadership of Internal Affairs section under the Professional Standards Bureau developed projects relating to improving incident review processes, use of technology, data analysis. One example of these progressive improvements built upon our IA Pro data collection application and is named Blue Team. Blue Team is used by 700 plus public safety agencies. It is a premier platform in support of frontline documentation, supervisory oversight, and organizational accountability. There are several different ways a complaint can be lodged against the agency or members. They can be received by email, they can be web-based, in person, by phone, in writing. All complaints are documented, whether they are received at the precinct section level or forwarded to Internal Affairs directly. Transitioning into policy revisions for the year 2020, the department revised several policies that are consistent with the national trends and county laws to include the SMART Act. Our values of integrity, fairness, and service contain many of these adjustments, but the revisions added express provisions. For example, an express provision for sanctity of life, an express provision of a duty to intervene, and an express provision for a duty to report excessive or unnecessary use of force. Additionally, our use of force policy was revised to explicitly ban neck restraints, including chokeholds, except in defense against serious bodily injury or death. Additionally, the department developed 2 new review processes that were implemented during the 2020 calendar year to ensure fair and impartial evaluations of discipline and critical incidents occurring within Baltimore County. The first is the Disciplinary Review Panel. This was created to provide department-wide consistency during 2020 to review sustained formal investigations to determine findings and recommend discipline based on the adopted disciplinary matrix. The panel meets monthly to review cases presented by the Internal Affairs section. A summary is then forwarded to the Chief of Police for final approval. The second was the Critical Incident Review Board. This was created to evaluate individual actions of officers involved in a critical incident and to make recommendations to the Chief of Police as to whether an incident was within policy. This would conclude my portion of the presentation, and I would like to thank you for your time. At this point, I will turn the presentation over to Colonel Delp.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of County Council. I'm Colonel Dennis Delp of the Administrative Support Bureau. I will be talking about our wellness sections, peer support, and wellness team. Baltimore County Police Department recognizes that the employees of our agency are its most valuable asset. The better we serve our employees, the better they will be able to serve the public. Situations and demands specific to the field of law enforcement result in unique stressors which can cause both acute and accumulative stress reactions. These situations may be related to the employee's professional life, personal life, and often both. 2020 brought an unprecedented amount of stressors to first responders. Law enforcement has always had to cope with critical incident traumatic stress and organizational stress. This past year of society-wide stressors from COVID and the first responders' experience of the same stressors compounded the situation. Dealing with infected and at-risk populations, access to healthcare, unemployment, quarantine anger over social restrictions, enforcement of health orders, demonstrations, and being isolated created a feeling of being overwhelmed. In response, during 2020, the Baltimore County Police Department's Behavioral Assessment Unit initiated the Peer Support and Wellness Team to serve sworn officers and professional staff. This voluntary confidential resource supplements existing county employee assistance programs and psychological services. Peer support can be immediate and can help address potential crisis until the appropriate professional service is available. In addition to the immediate response to individual officers or units as needed, the Peer Support and Wellness Team offers officer safety, wellness, and resiliency programs for all members via multiple platforms such as videos, roll call training, specialized training, informers, and after-hours programs. Peer support members traveled the county speaking with members to ensure that the department members knew that services were available and to assess the overall mindset of its employees. The department has also contracted to develop a wellness smartphone app in previous months to further assist its members. Officer wellness will remain a priority for our police department, and we will continue to focus our efforts and resources in this area. Transitioning to our wellness section's mobile crisis team. The Baltimore County Police Department's mobile crisis team provides health services to persons in mental, behavioral, or emotional crisis. Specially trained police officers are paired with licensed mental health clinicians. The mobile crisis team uses unmarked police vehicles and subdued uniforms in an effort to help de-escalate individuals who are in crisis. They provide an on-site emergency police response to persons in need of crisis intervention, assess individuals in need of services, offer resources and referrals, and exercise emergency petitions when warranted. The mobile crisis team is focused on connecting behavioral health patients to the most appropriate services and on diverting them from the criminal justice system and hospital emergency rooms. A specialized function provides enhanced de-escalation tools beyond the standard patrol response to calls and incidents. During the calendar year 2020, the mobile crisis team responded to 2,719 calls for service. A total of 2,269 individuals were able to be offered specialized services such as referrals to community health options, safety plans developed, or additional resources. The mobile crisis team is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The mobile crisis team handles the following types of calls for service: any call involving a behavioral health emergency, an individual with suicidal thoughts, a person with emotional or mental health disorder or disconnected from the mental health services, a person in an emotional or situational crisis such as a family conflict, and they also conduct critical incident support and critical incident stress management. This is for police personnel and citizens experiencing stress from a traumatic incident. They also assist with death notifications and mental health issues with prisoners. We are very proud of our mobile crisis team and the fact that the pilot program for the unit goes back to 2001. In the near future, we will be expanding the mobile crisis team's capabilities, and we'll also have a representative at the 911 Communication Center for call screening to further enhance services provided. Transitioning to our employment section's efforts for 2020. Like many police departments in our region, the Baltimore County Police Department faces challenges when it comes to attracting qualified applicants. The year 2020 was especially challenging with COVID restrictions and mitigating measures in place. Face-to-face recruitment efforts were severely restricted. Written testing through the Office of Human Resources was also significantly impacted. Background investigators and administrative staff began teleworking. All of these factors made an already difficult job harder. Recruitment efforts that were conducted included targeting individuals out of work due to COVID, increased social media advertising on Facebook, Instagram, and Baltimore County webpage, conducted virtual job fairs, phone calls and emails to previously interested individuals, visited open businesses that remained open during COVID restrictions, utilized billboards and traffic signs, and sent recruitment mailings to specific zip codes. That said, the employment section was able to hire 94 recruit officers during 2020. The employment section was able to achieve a diverse demographic of 35% minority representation of the total recruit officers hired. We continue to explore new, innovative, and focused recruitment strategies to ensure that we continue to attract qualified and diverse applicants. One way that we are attempting to expand our recruitment effectiveness is to rotate our recruitment officers in our recruitment unit. We are training a variety of officers to become recruiters on a temporary rotating basis. This will expand our circle and influence with recruiting advocates on a daily and hourly basis out in the field. There are numerous benefits to having trained recruiters throughout the agency. It expands collective knowledge, it improves morale in the department, it acts as a force multiplier with respect to the number of positive interactions in the community, and it develops personal ownership at the individual level. As an example, since January of 2018, there have been 771 applicants who listed an officer as a referral to this agency. In 2020, the department engaged an independent consultant to conduct a comprehensive review of recruitment, hiring, and hiring practices. This assessment is examining each stage of the onboarding process to provide information, analysis, guidance, and recommendations to improve the department's success in recruiting high-quality police officers with a focus on improving diversity to better reflect the communities that the department serves. Recruitment, testing, physical agility, background investigation, psychological, medical, sequence of process, streamlining, and efficacy measures are all being examined. We are currently awaiting the final recommendations at this time. I would like to thank you for your time, and I will now turn the program over to Director Kelly Fenner.
Good afternoon, Council Chairman and Council members. I am Kelly Fenner, Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer with Baltimore County Police Department. In 2020, the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion identified 5 focus areas and instituted multiple initiatives. The focus areas being amplifying voices, strengthening community connections, growing the department, restoring trust, and empowering inclusive leaders. These initiatives include developing and hosting Candid Conversation. Candid Conversations is the title of a safe environment designed to discuss sensitive issues surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusion through guided conversation. These forums include participants from the department as well as the community. The feedback from those who have attended live and virtual sessions has been positive. Many have expressed gratitude for the opportunity to be present in an anxiety-free environment. To continue with the initiatives, the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion revitalized the departmental newsletter, Beyond the Badge, with a dedicated section to diversity, equity, and inclusion concepts. Collaboration with the Office of Public Affairs on the video campaign. The campaign focuses on speaking with community members and highlights the various faiths and cultures in the county. These 2-minute video spotlights have the potential to broaden cultural awareness and emotional intelligence, and they are released quarterly on all social media platforms. There's a department-wide career development that was initiated to encourage participation, strengthen confidence, and improve performance in the pursuit of any advancement position. Participation in this resource has resulted in 37% of the participants being promoted, with 50% of those promotees representing minority groups and women. Along with these initiatives, the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion reviews important areas of policies, procedures, and programs, including recruitment and hiring, the promotional process, departmental awards, uniform standards, and religious accommodations. Lastly, I'd like to emphasize the Office of DEI routinely works with leaders across the department to help ensure diversity, equity, and inclusion are integral components of our day-to-day operations. I thank you for your attention, and at this time, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Colonel Jay Landsman.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairperson, members of the council. I'm Colonel Jay Landsman, Jr., Chief of the Operations Bureau for the Police Department. The Operations Bureau includes all 3 patrol divisions, East, West, and Central, covering our 10 police precincts and the Support Operations Division. The Support Operations Division includes 2 sections, the Special Operations Section, which consists of our tactical unit, the K-9 unit, the Hazardous Devices team, and then our Operational Support Section, which includes our Marine and Aviation teams, Traffic Management Unit, DUI Task Force, Crash Investigations Unit, along with our Youth and Community Resources Unit. I appreciate the opportunity to present today, and the first area I will discuss is the department's body-worn camera program. The Baltimore County Police Department is committed to maintaining the highest level of accountability and transparency. A significant step for the organization took place in July of 2016 with the start of the body-worn camera pilot program. After a successful pilot program, full implementation was completed in September of 2017. Body-worn camera training is completed by each new academy class. Cameras are assigned to all department members whose primary duties involve enforcement and citizen contact, which is primarily patrol, traffic, and our community action teams, as well as detectives whose primary function is making arrests. These investigative units include our Warrant and Apprehension Task Force and our Regional Auto Theft Task Force. All conducted energy weapon or taser operators have been issued body-worn cameras to ensure that uses of force involving a conducted energy weapon are captured on video. In February of 2020, the department implemented a new release policy for body-worn camera footage to increase transparency and public access. Under this policy, a 30 business day timeline is set for release under most circumstances after consultation with the state's attorney's office. The release policy was developed to reinforce our commitment to accountability and to clarify and standardize the circumstances under which body-worn camera footage will be shared publicly. The next area I will discuss is department's COVID-19 pandemic response. In early 2020, the department developed and implemented an incident management team in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The chief immediately shifted the organization's response to the crisis into an incident command system, or ICS, model of management, which designated an operations, planning, logistics, and finance chief under one incident commander. This allowed the department's daily operations to continue while the team coordinated the many challenges of the pandemic response. Some of the unique functions that the police department was tasked with included preparation of traffic management and safety plans for all support services provided during the pandemic response, which included food distribution sites, COVID-19 testing sites, contingency planning with local hospitals, and finally vaccination sites. The police department has been intimately involved in the planning process and staffing of every one of these sites, and that effort continues. The incident management team addressed operational, investigative, and administrative challenges, including the mitigation of viral exposure through the use of PPE, social distancing, and sanitization. In the field of public safety, we have to interact with people, including people infected with COVID-19. Decontamination of vehicles, equipment, and facilities were all things that we were familiar with, but we had never experienced a threat like COVID-19. We had to make contingency plans for potential depletion of our workforce due to isolation and quarantine, and be able to shift personnel into critical roles when necessary. We stood up a telephone reporting team for each precinct, which provided citizens with additional options for service while reducing the need for face-to-face interaction. Our safety team worked diligently with the health department to conduct timely contact trace investigations. While COVID-19 was the original focus of the incident management team, we saw many demonstrations and rallies throughout the county over the past year. The incident management team managed the department's response to at least 96 public gatherings and demonstrations throughout 2020. Some of the demonstrations and rallies were related to the reopening of businesses and schools or other COVID-19 related issues. But throughout the summer, many were about police reform and social justice. The charge for the police department remained the same for every gathering: to provide a safe environment for people to exercise their constitutional right, and we continue to do that. The managed response supported the protection of both public safety and First Amendment constitutional rights for all participants and observers. As we continued through the fall, the incident management team was instrumental in managing the unique aspects of the 2020 election, with traffic management plans and additional patrols, again, to provide a safe and secure environment for people to exercise their constitutional right. The incident management team has been successful in maintaining continuity of police operations and coordinating services with other public safety agencies throughout the pandemic. And a shining example of that is the Social Distancing Task Force. The Social Distancing Task Force was assembled early on in the pandemic response as a way to handle many calls for service related to the COVID-19 executive orders. A process was developed where calls for service were received at the 911 center and were diverted to the incident management team, where the complaints were triaged by detectives. If the detectives could not resolve the issue over the phone, the call would be directed to one of the partner agencies in the Social Distancing Task Force. The task force was established as a collaborative effort between the police department, the fire department, code enforcement, the health department, the liquor board, and building inspections. The mission of the task force was and is to enforce state and local orders regarding gatherings, social distancing, and face masks. The task force was later expanded to include recreation and parks, economic and workforce development, and the Baltimore County Public Schools. The task force worked collaboratively to engage the public and resolve social distancing complaints and violations through education, encouragement, and enforcement at the lowest level possible to gain compliance. The task force has been successful in mitigating complaints and bolstering compliance through proactive inspections as well. In addition, the Maryland State Police has encouraged other jurisdictions to look to Baltimore County as a model for their own task forces. The Baltimore County 911 Center routed over 3,200 calls for service since March of 2020 to the Social Distancing Task Force. Roughly 2,600 calls have been diverted to agencies other than police, and our partner agencies continue to field these calls just as they have throughout the entire pandemic response. The partnerships that were developed and strengthened as a result of the formation of the Social Distancing Task Force continue today as we collaborate with other task force agencies to address the needs of communities throughout Baltimore County. This concludes my portion of the presentation. Thank you very much for your time. I will turn the presentation back over to Chief Hyatt. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colonel Landsman, and really thank you to all of the colonels and Director Fenner. 2020 will undoubtedly be a part of history that won't soon be forgotten by any of us. And there are so many partners and stakeholders that have worked closely together to continue to make Baltimore County a magnificent place to visit, live, and work. And while we have discussed some of our accomplishments this afternoon, we can't afford to simply rest on our laurels, as there is still a lot of work to be done. As professionals, we will continue to evolve as this profession continues to move forward. We will maintain our focus to continue progressing as an innovative police department, and we will strive to build trust and strengthen relationships within every neighborhood across Baltimore County. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon, and we are happy to answer any questions that you have.
Chief Hyatt, I thank you so much for the presentation. I certainly appreciate the presentation from all the colonels and the civilian directors from the department. I can tell you that I was most impressed. I always knew we had a very good police department, and this presentation just makes it absolutely clear we have a great police department beyond any shadow of a doubt. And I guess think that I'm going to take the liberty of speaking for my colleagues to say that when we passed the Smart Policing Act, we knew that it was a great department, and this report shows it. So on that note, I'm going to open up the floor to any questions by any of my colleagues.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead, Councilman Katz.
Yes, Chief Hyatt, I'd like to congratulate you and your department for the wonderful job that you're doing. You are keeping Baltimore County a safe place to live and a safe place for our schools and our children. I don't know if you know, I was a math teacher in the Baltimore County Public Schools and also in the state legislature. And whenever a problem would come to me, the first thing I do is look to see what the problem is. Have other jurisdictions had the same problem? How did they resolve it? How successful were they in resolving it? Now, in the presentations, there was I don't know, it's instruction or something regarding bias. What was the full name of that? Was it a task force or a course?
That's a training course called Fair and Impartial Policing. It's a police-related training on unconscious or implicit bias.
Now, you mentioned some police agencies in this country who are using it, whose track record, I would say, isn't quite well. The perception in the country is that some of these, like Minneapolis, New York, and I forget what some of the rest of them are. The reputations of those police forces are not as good as ours. Okay. Do you know when this course was instituted in these various cities, and has it helped there in the other cities?
So that's a great question, sir. And, I can't speak on behalf of those other police departments, but what I can say, having spoken to our employees, our police officers, as well as our leadership team who participated in 2 sessions with the community, and I was in both of those sessions, is that the benefit of this training is having us, pause and really understand a bit more about ourselves and about how our prior experiences and how our lives impact how we evaluate what's in front of us. And so, while I can't speak on behalf of these other organizations, I can tell you that for us as a tool, I think that this is a really important one. And I know the Department of Justice and some other nationally recognized entities are very favorable of this particular block of training for that very reason.
It sounds like something that would really help a particular police force, and I was just wondering how long they had been there and how successful. One of the things I learned in teaching, you had to be very careful with information that a colleague would give you about various students. Sometimes that information could color your how you might feel about certain students, etc. And so I never really listened to any another teacher warning me about a student. I want to see how the student was going to be with me. I really wasn't concerned about how the student was with somebody else. Is this part of possibly our problem with preconceived notions about certain areas, certain races, etc.?
I would say that we all have implicit bias, every single one of us. And the importance of sitting in an educational setting and learning about how our prior experiences impact or could potentially impact our outlook, our perspective is really important. And, implicit bias training or unconscious bias training is something that frankly everyone should have. And one of the things that impacted me when we did our police and community session was the impact that we had from community leaders who said, this is great, but it's probably more than just police officers that should be educated on this to understand how we have to respond in order to manage what we, come into our lives with.
Newborn babies are the only ones that aren't biased, etc. Once you're in the world for a while, you hear things, you witness things, and unfortunately, you develop bias, etc. So Again, I want to thank you very much. I am very encouraged by what I heard. I thought that, your organization is very professional and you're obviously getting the job done. And I know, speaking for the council, anything that we can do to help, we're here. And again, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilman. Any of the other members have a question or a comment?
Sure, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chief Hyatt and your leadership team. I was very impressed with the comprehensive and way that you have taken the issues, the contemporary issues that police departments are dealing with throughout the country and here in Baltimore County. It seems like you are looking at what best practices are, applying them here in Baltimore County. I agree with my colleagues. I was very impressed with your presentation. I think your leadership team, as well as the staff in the precincts, do a great job. I just have a few minor questions. One relates to training. On the de-escalation training, is that a one-time training or does that have a level of frequency, like certification of some sort?
So de-escalation training is something that we weave through a lot of the work that we do. Colonel Layback, if you want to take just a moment to touch on the different levels of de-escalation training that we have starting in our initial entry training, I would appreciate that.
Thank you, Chief. Yeah, so we do all types of de-escalation training revolving around the critical decision-making process. So it basically comes into just about everything we do, whether it's taser training, it's done yearly at in service. So it's something that's continuously something we're continuously doing constantly. It's not just a one-time process, and it's kind of interwoven into everything that we're doing at the training academy.
And Colonel, just to interject, twice so far I have been to see our scenario-based training for in-service. It was the most recent time, it was at the flea market where they held the training. And this is where we have seasoned police officers that are going through multiple scenarios, placed in situations where they need to utilize de-escalation skills. And, that was my first time initially when I went to see it, and I was incredibly pleased with what I saw in terms of the amount of effort that not only went into preparing the scenarios, but most importantly, the after action that occurred with the officers that were in the scenarios, as well as the other officers that were observing the scenarios.
Thank you.
Yeah, so like, for example, when we go to the range, we also, obviously reinforce judgmental skills and drills. So it's definitely part of everything that we're doing. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, thank you, Colonel Layback. The other question I had was related to recruits. I think it was mentioned that there are 94 recruits, 35% were minority. Does a recruit equal a cadet, or is there something that in between? I didn't know if the words are used interchangeably.
So a
Does that
recruit,
mean somebody that's in the academy, that ends up in the academy and will be a police officer, or is there something that happens between recruit and cadet?
so a cadet is someone, this is Colonel Delp. So a cadet is someone between the ages of 18 and 21 that works in an administrative job within the police department, either at a precinct or at headquarters. A 21-year-old, when we say the word recruit, that is a 21-year-old or older individual that is actually in the academy. When we use the word recruit, it means an academy participant.
Okay, thank you very much. And final question, I guess, Chief, and I think you and I have had this discussion, but maybe with Ms. Fenner as well. So in the second district, there are members of the Orthodox Jewish community that expressed interest in becoming a recruit. But there are certain religious and cultural limitations in terms of the days in which they are able to work to follow the traditions of their faith. And so I just wanted to put that out there as something to consider as we kind of broaden the field for recruits in the future.
Absolutely, Councilman. And actually, we've had conversations with both the Orthodox community as well as the Sikh community. And Director Fenner, if you want to take just a moment, because Director Fenner is doing a policy review, comparing, looking at what some other organizations are doing. Director Fenner.
Yes, thank you, Chief. Councilman, I'm sorry. Yes, I've reviewed multiple policies from across the country from some of the major police departments that mirror the same size as our agency to get a best practices, what we are doing across the country that would be able to accommodate people from different cultures and faiths. We've been able to revise our current policy. That policy is now under our planning section for finalization. And hopefully within the next couple of months that will be out and we'll be able to actively recruit members from the Jewish faith. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you, Director Fenner, and thank you, Chief. And again, very impressive presentation, and just shout out to the two captains I deal the most with, Captain Buckingham and Captain Rogers. Both, I think, do a very good job in their respective precincts.
Thanks, sir.
Councilman Quirk.
Thank you, Chairman Jones, and good evening, Chief and Director Fenner and our colonels. And first of all, I just wanted to thank you all for your service. And also, if you could just relay our sincere gratitude to all the policemen and women who do a great job every day, professional and serving this county. So we definitely are very grateful for the service. My question is fairly easy, just on recruiting. So probably Colonel Delp. I drive up and down Frederick Road, I don't know, maybe 15 times a day between Ellicott City and Catonsville, and I see plenty of billboards recruiting police. But the problem is they're never Baltimore County police. They're always like other counties. Like I literally probably 5 other counties I've seen billboards for, but I've never even once seen any local recruitment. Now maybe it happens, I just don't see it. But what I guess my question, what types of efforts are we doing to really try to recruit really good qualified people from Baltimore County? Because I see it happening all over the place, but just I don't personally, and I'm sure it's there, but I just don't visibly see active recruitment in even my own town for Baltimore County. So I just wanted to check in on that.
Yes.
So Councilman, I'm going to turn it over to Colonel Delp in just a second, but I will say this, and I know one of the things that he's going to touch on are some of the targeted billboard campaigns that we're going to be launching soon. We have really taken a very introspective look at what our previous recruiting and advertising efforts were and what we were actually netting out of them. And in some circumstances, we found that some of the things that we were doing were not as effective as we needed to. So Colonel Delp, some of the things that your team is doing right now, some of the ads and some of the other things that you're doing are very targeted. So if you could just speak up for a moment about that.
Yes. Yeah. So Councilman, there are billboards out there, just not obviously in that location. We do have one at Liberty Road and Langer, and Bel Air Road and Delight. They start this month, so we do have some in Baltimore County. One of the ways that we really do try to attract people from Baltimore County is in our schools, as far as young people from our SRO program, to try to develop relationships and mentors with the youth in Baltimore County. So that's one of our ways. But we have multiple, obviously, things that are going on with radio ads, with diverse radio stations, historical Black colleges. We reach out to Divine Nine sorority organization, webinars, SROs, military recruitment, targeted mailings to certain areas. And we also have been doing a lot of social media campaigns as far as highlighting our minority officers, especially during Black History Month. We really highlighted a lot of our officers and from a recruitment standpoint. So those are some ways that we're targeting Baltimore County as well.
And I appreciate that. I really do. And again, I appreciate all of the work that the leadership does, all the way down to our patrol person out on the street. And I guess given all the especially the heightened political climate, we might say, how do you see recruitment trends right now? I mean, are we holding our own? Are we way down versus where we have been? Or I'm worried about you know, the ability to continue to attract and bring on the best people we can, especially in this heightened political climate, for sure.
Yes, we're getting applicants, fortunately, and we are processing them. It's just obviously we have retirements, we have the natural attrition out of the agency, and just trying to. It takes obviously 6 to 8 months to train recruits. So as people are retiring and coming of retirement age, we hire someone through that 6-month academy class, 2 months of field training, and sometimes by the time we do that, we've already lost other people to retirements, and it's like a constant backfilling. But yes, we are getting applicants, and we're competing in this area. We compete with a lot of other large agencies. This region of the Maryland, DC, Virginia area has a lot of large police departments, so it is a constant struggle all the time.
But we're also very fortunate, despite the challenges that law enforcement, you know, nationwide is experiencing in terms of recruitment. We're working very closely with the administration. Director Benjamin from Office of Human Resources is working with us to try to reduce as much red tape as possible to help us expedite our process. And we've been incredibly fortunate to have a lot of support from across the administration. And I do feel confident that over the next few months, we're going to be able to do some things to make our process far more smooth than it's been in the past. And I think we're going to see the benefits of that.
And one interesting thing to just let you know, we've had a 200% increase in our webpage visits since January of 2021. So that's an interesting statistic.
Thank you. And I really do appreciate that. And you know, I mean, obviously we did some legislative fix for some of the issues we had, keeping some of our knowledge base. And, you know, I mean, obviously I think we're all concerned with some of the retirements that are happening, and hopefully we can hold on to a lot of the knowledge and institutional, just exceptional experience that we have in the Baltimore County Police. And so if there's other legislative things that we can do to help in that effort, I mean, I know the county exec's office has been incredibly helpful as well. And I know, Chief, you spent some time on it. And so I do appreciate that. And sorry, that's my cat. But thank you. Let us know if you guys need anything else from us as a county council, if we can help in your efforts, especially on recruitment and retention, and really trying to hold on to a lot of the incredible talent we have, that some of which will be retiring. And appreciate your service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilman Marks.
Thank you very much. Thank you for a really outstanding, very thorough, comprehensive presentation. I'll join Councilman Patoka in acknowledging my excellent captains, Captain Camelli, Captain Edwards, and Captain Batten in White Marsh. Question I have is, we are continuing to engage our stakeholder groups, correct? And I'm not just talking about the Fraternal Order Police, but the Blue Guardians, a lot of our organizations that really came together to support this bill. And I thought that was very important to have them on board. We're continuing to engage them, correct?
Absolutely. We have regularly scheduled meetings with all three organizations, really, of course, the FOP, but as well the Blue Guardians and our women's group. Right. And certainly their input and their feedback into the work that we're doing is very important.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Marks. Are there any other questions or comments? Chief, I will. Oh, no, go right ahead.
Mr. Chair. I wanted to thank the chief and the staff for such a thorough presentation, as Councilman Mark said, and there were some numbers, especially when Colonel Davis was was talking, the numbers as compared to national averages, I don't know how that's skewed based on the size of other jurisdictions compared to ours, but the clearance rates are extremely high as compared to national averages, and that's, I think, the basics of police work and what citizens expect is when bad actors are out there and they do something, that they get locked up, and it certainly appears that that Baltimore County Police are excellent at doing that. And I think what struck me with the presentation, not exactly what I expected. Of course, I woke up this morning thinking that this was going to be the budget hearing, but it just hit me when you all were going through your presentation that there's so much to this agency, both in constant improvements amongst the rank and file and the brass and our civilian employees in the agency. There's just so much going on to improve things. There's so much going on with community interaction. Our outreach officers, I think, do an incredible job of keeping community associations engaged. So, and because you're a large agency with a large jurisdiction, you get criticism that sometimes is not warranted. So I do have one question for Colonel Davis. So you're talking about the carjacking incidents and that the offenders were primarily young people. Do we know what happened to those young people? Were they convicted? Do we know what happened after? I was just wondering what the consequences were, and if we know that. And it's a loaded question, I think, because I guess the genesis of the question really is, and some things that I hear some officers mention to me is that, Councilman, we lock them up and they're out very quickly. So I'm just wondering, and that's not you, your agency, that's our judicial system.
Yes, Councilman, that's a great question. And I'll preface this by saying that my answer is going to kind of border on the Department of Juvenile Services and some of the services that they provide. Has the case has been adjudicated yet? I don't know if all the cases have gone to criminal court yet. But what I do know is that the Department of Juvenile Services offers an assortment of what we call restorative justice programs. And those are a multitude of programs, could range from anger management to counseling to other types of training to help rehabilitate our juveniles, our kids, and to get them moving in the right direction. So I know that our partner agencies put a lot into rehabilitation, and so we all hope that it works and it sticks, and that the youth that we deal with do not recidivate. So really, it's the answer that I can give without being a part of the Department of Juvenile Services.
Right. I appreciate that. I'm wondering.
And one other thing, sir, that I would add to couple with what Colonel Davis just said. Certainly, when there are other resources that are available and appropriate for juveniles that may offend, those are given. And then there are other cases that we're engaged in, very serious cases where that may not be appropriate. But just the other day, in fact, I see that the deputy administrative officer is on this call. Mr. Vetter and I were involved in some conversations with some other stakeholders about, looking into some other options for juveniles and some other things for our youth to be able to consider.
Right. Well, and I mixed two questions into one there when I was really. I was speaking to the carjacking incidents that Colonel Davis referenced, and when I made the comment of we lock them up but they don't stay in, that's really not just for juveniles. That's across the spectrum of ages and and crimes. So I know it's of concern to a lot of our citizens that the judicial branch is just not tough enough. Do we still have joins?
We do still have joins, and one thing that I, really do want to point out, though, something that I think we're incredibly fortunate to have in Baltimore County is our relationship in the police department with the state's attorney's office, and they work incredibly closely with us on these cases. And I can't tell you how fortunate I feel, and I know that this entire leadership team feels that way as well.
Yeah, well, thank you for mentioning that. I think most of us on the council would agree that Mr. Schellenberger does an excellent job as our prosecutor. So appreciate you bringing that up. And then one final regarding joins. COVID had to affect joins in some way, correct? How did the program make it through the past year?
Absolutely, and I'm going to turn it over to Colonel Landsman in just a second. So it obviously it did change everything that we did, but one of the things that we saw with joins in particular, and some of this is really to the credit of the officers that are involved in that program and how much they care about the youth that they're working with, but they did a lot of actually extra engagement with some of these youth, just like some of our school resource officers did, knowing that circumstances were different. And we actually received some feedback from some individuals that are affiliated with that joins program, saying that during the pandemic, it had really been an opportunity for there to be engagement that wasn't, that felt like it was more natural, and that there were some really strong benefits that came out of the pandemic and the relationships between the officers and the youth that are in those programs. Colonel Landsman, anything that you would add to that?
No, and I think the kids, the message that they got was that even with all this isolation and everything, that there was still somebody thinking about their welfare and what their status was, and obviously as we've moved through the pandemic response, that the in-person visits with the youth and their parents are ramping back up, getting that back in the full swing again, which we think will proactively help our crime numbers in the end and divert these kids in a more positive path, which is the hope for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. Well,
and the last thing that I would add, Councilman, is I think that it's relevant to add that Department of Juvenile Services actually has one of their employees that's embedded in Colonel Davis's team. So we work with them very, very closely and directly, which really helps in terms of us communicating back and forth.
Very good. Well, it's good to hear, because I think our Department of Corrections is and the jail in Towson is primarily younger people that are in there for whatever offense. So if we can get them young and get them with a relationship with the police department, maybe it'll show them that there's other things in life that might be out there for them. So I appreciate the work on that end of it. So thank you so much. I won't take up any more of your time. Thank you all for your service to Baltimore County.
Thank you, Councilman Crandall. Are there any additional questions or comments from the members? Let me just close by again congratulating you, Chief, you and your team. I'll also give a shout out to my captains, Captain Lilly, Captain Rogers, and Captain Buckingham, who does an excellent job. And let me just say that your program was very impressive. And I think it's just that you and the ladies and men of the Baltimore County Police Department do a fantastic job. And we're very proud of everything you do. Certainly appreciate it. And on that note, I guess we'll prepare for our next meeting, but the presentation was well received and very impressive. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, and thank you all for the support.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, I did have one more question. What was the percentage of the 94 people that we recruited that live in Baltimore County? Do we know that?
Percentage in terms of
how many of them live in Baltimore County?
I don't know off the top of my head the percentage of the 94 hired. That's a good question, but I'm not sure of the percentage on that.
Okay, thank you very much.
We can get back to you on that. We'll look into that.
All right, fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
See everybody in a couple of minutes.